John, you still have a son in college.
Yeah,
So maybe he can open up a chapter of Young Americans Against Socialism at his campus.
like it.
Morgan Zegers is the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. Seems like a timely and aptly named organization, particularly on a college campus, but not limited there. And she joins us now. Morgan, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So the genesis of Young Americans Against Socialism.
All right, so we are rooted in the idea that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. That's what's happening right now in my generation. We were not properly taught the failures of socialism, the dangers of socialism, why capitalism, even with its flaws, is still the greatest option for a country to achieve success and freedom and equality. And so now a majority of young Americans, this is crazy, would choose socialism over capitalism, and that puts the future of the country at risk. That's why I founded Young Americans Against Socialism.
And you've actually run for office already, even at your young age. And what was that experience like, and how does that inform focusing on college campuses?
Well, so I ran for upstate New York, a state assembly district there. And I'll tell you, in New York State, it's pretty bad. It's very progressive. Everything's rooted in New York City policy. And so 1 million people in the last 10 years have fled New York State to go to places like Texas, places like Florida, where they can find job opportunities, where they won't be taxed to death, where it's just overall a nice place to live with such less corruption, thanks to Governor Cuomo. So I ran for state assembly. It was a great experience, but I'll tell you, when I did an interview with the local paper for an endorsement from them, they asked me, they said, Morgan, you've said before that you don't like socialism. Isn't your family a military family? Isn't your dad a colonel? Doesn't that mean you're on military health care? Isn't that socialist? And that exposed to me, they are not taking this seriously. The mainstream media is not taking the rise of socialism in my generation especially seriously. And it's a problem. And to me, it was a slap in the face that they would compare my dad's service on 9/11 and in Operation Iraqi Freedom to socialism and what he got for that.
The
It's
media,
crazy.
those newspaper reporters and editorial boards. When you have you have like parties or group things, like events for your group, I'd suggest you could have like no toilet paper at the party, and also maybe barbecue some zoo animals, like
And
Venezuelan style.
no, you got to make sure that you have culturally appropriate vegetables and no garbage
No
disposals too.
tapirs,
Yeah,
no
right.
zebras on spits.
Well, so where does it stand? Where does the organization stand in terms of getting chapters organized on college campuses and getting young people involved?
Yeah, so actually, we are a lean and mean operation. There's a lot of really great campus organization groups. There's Young Americans for Liberty, Young Americans for Freedom. There's Turning Point USA, which Charlie Kirk and Bill Montgomery, the founders, are from Chicago area. So it's kind of cool that I'm talking to you guys now. And Bill Montgomery from Turning Point is actually helping us found Young Americans for Socialism. So we've got a really great team. But this is not about campus organization because those guys are taking care of it. This is a social media organization because 90% of young Americans have a social media account. We are acknowledging 50% or more of young Americans want socialism. 90% of them have a social media account. We're combining that. So we brought our top-notch media team, our top-notch production team. We travel the country telling the stories of people who have escaped socialism because it's those emotional stories that really get to my generation. You can't just hit them with facts. You can't tell them the minimum wage if we raise it to $15 an hour. It's just not going to be sustainable. They don't really take that in. They take emotion. And so I am adding emotion to our playbook by traveling the country, filming these powerful emotional stories of people who have lived through the hell of socialism. We put them into short 2-minute videos on social media, and they go viral, reaching millions of people in my generation, exposing them to the truth. That's why it's lean and mean. Social media advertising is very, very cost effective compared to having to organize on campus, compared to having to rally all the students together. We are reaching the people that need to see this educational content.
Why does emotion work so well? We talked about that. Why does it work so well to your generation as opposed to
Well, I
facts?
think Definitely, I mean, they definitely lean left, and the left has always used emotion. If we consider what happens when we think of the border crisis, for them, all they say is you're separating families, and that's bad. And that is their talking point. They don't want to talk about anything else regarding the border. But I'll tell you, when I went to American University in D.C. for my bachelor's degree, I had a microeconomics professor, and he was the only professor that I had where I literally could not tell what side he lied on. For every other professor, I knew they were leftist. But this guy, I really respected him because I didn't know what way he leaned. And if anything, I feel like I was more libertarian. But he looks at my class. This is before the 2016 primaries with Hillary versus Bernie. And he goes, okay, class, we're going to talk about the minimum wage today. How many people will be voting for Bernie Sanders in the upcoming primary? And the whole class of about 200 people raises their hand. They're like hooting and hollering. And he goes, okay, well, Bernie Sanders wants a $15 minimum wage. We're going to break that down. And he spent the next hour breaking down what happens when you raise the minimum wage $1 above the market level. What happens when you raise it $2? What happens when you double the minimum wage right now and make it $15 an hour? And basically, he showed it results in economic catastrophe. He then looks at my class after an hour of teaching this, and he goes, okay, class, who is still going to be voting for Bernie Sanders? The whole class, again, rises up. They're like, woohoo, that's us. We're going to be doing it. Everybody, it was almost like they had smirks on their faces, knowing that he just portrayed that his policy won't work, and they were still going to support him. And that is the lesson that I take into this when I talk about making these videos for Yes.
Since this is a social media organization, you're making these videos and they're being viewed by many. How have you been treated so far by the big tech companies? Have there been any censorship issues to date?
Well, actually, we launch next Thursday on August 15th, so we haven't experienced anything yet. We did really well. We posted last week a teaser just saying, this August 15th, we are going to launch an Americans Against Socialism. And then I don't know if you guys saw this. We posted a video of the Democratic Socialists of America conference.
Oh, yeah. We've been enjoying that all week. Oh, yeah.
Yep, so that spread like wildfire. Our media director, what happened, he texted us at 1 a.m. and he goes, guys, we need to tweet this out and spread it like wildfire. And that's exactly what happened. In 24 hours, we got 1 million organic views. No paid advertising. Just Americans were concerned by what they saw there. They shared it. It went viral. It had 1 million people see it in 24 hours. We got on Fox News, Fox Business. We got on
concerned and wildly entertained by it as well.
But did you just refer to us as guys?
Oh, please don't use gendered language. Oh. That's great.
Sorry, comrade.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have to excuse John. He has sensory issues, and this chatter makes it very difficult for him to focus and
concentrate.
Clapping
my hands. Can you see me?
Yeah. So this social media organization. So you were talking about the emotional appeal. I like what you said at the beginning too. There's some people that are older don't have an appreciation for what young people have never been exposed to in terms of the arguments, the history they haven't lived through, and so forth. What is it that you find to be so far in your conversations and as you've talked about putting this organization together? Yes, the emotional appeal, but how do you speak about the free enterprise system? How do you speak in terms of promoting excellence that you think resonates best with young people, because it could be instructive for older people as well?
Yeah, I definitely think the idea of the American dream is being messed up right now by the far left. They are what is a really good book that I read recently. I can't remember the name of it, but it talks about how when socialists come to power, they have to redefine terms that we have always used. And so recently, Bernie Sanders has been doing this, Senator Sanders. He posted a video, and it was a bunch of people saying, are you really free if you have to pay a lot for your health care? Are you really free if you have student loan debt? Are you really free if? And I was like, yes, you are still free. Thank you. But no, do not try and tell people that they are not free because they have to pay for their own thing. They are making a new narrative for what capitalism is versus socialism. And they're basically saying, you have a hard life right now because you have to make decisions for yourself and you have to pay for your own thing. You have to give me power so that I will handle it. I'll let the government take it over so it's off your shoulders, and then you will be free. That's not freedom, but they are selling that freedom to our young Americans, and that's why they think capitalism doesn't bring freedom. They are redefining words we have always used. That's why socialists always come to power, and this is why it's important to understand historical context. Today, socialists will say, oh, no, we're not socialists. We're democratic socialists. It's totally different. You still have your vote and your voice with us. Well, guess what? Venezuela was a democratic socialist country then because it democratically elected two socialist presidents that led the country, turning from a democracy to a socialist dictatorship in a matter of decades. And even crazier, guess what happened when Fidel Castro came to power in Cuba? Right after he came to power, he went to the United States, met with President Nixon, looked at the U.S. press, and said, I'm not a communist. I'm not a Marxist. I will not be implementing communism in Cuba. In fact, I am a democratic humanitarian. But at the same time as he is saying this stuff with these beautiful words, he is in Cuba having Che Guevara and the most radical minds, communist, Marxist, socialist minds, put together the layout for the future of the Cuban economy. And look how that turned out.
Yeah,
so it's very important to pay attention to wording, and they're doing it right now in today's 21st century politics.
And it's very important to connect the dots, which you're doing a nice job of, and that's exactly what needs to happen. And I wonder then, too, the storytelling that will happen. Will these be stories that contemplate the full range of the cultural Marxist agenda? Because I know there's a tendency among conservatives, some conservatives just focus on economic issues and the Green New Deal and Medicare for all and so forth. But the cultural Marxist agenda, too, with respect to men competing in women's sports, the whole trans ideology and so forth. That also something that will be contemplated by this organization, explained?
Absolutely. And that's because in governments that control the people, they have to control what you think, they have to control what you say. And it's different than we've seen in the 20th century because we didn't really have the strong LGBTQ community back then and all that. But today, the far left is controlling us through Antifa, controlling us through saying, oh, you can't offend anybody. I mean, look what happened at their own conference, you guys. You guys were just making fun of it. You can't even say gendered language at their own conference. They're never going to get anything done if that's the case. But what I also do for these videos, it's pretty crazy. We have an entire spectrum. We are going to Dallas actually tomorrow to film the story of a woman who was a hopeful Olympian for Venezuela before the country turned, before Chavez came to power. Her firearms coach, she was a shooter, shot at 22, and her firearms coach had escaped Cuba. And he had been telling her earlier, before Chavez came to power, you know, this Chavez guy, he sounds exactly like Castro. I think this is going to be a growing problem. We are in trouble. And everybody would be like, oh, it can't happen here. And she's going to do this in the video. She's going to explain how people in Venezuela said, oh, no, see, we're not an island. It's fine. We're not going to do that. They had all these excuses. They said Chavez is so nice. He's not going to do that. He's going to make us equal and fair, and society's going to be better. I mean, everybody's going to have more money. And the coach was right. And luckily, that woman heard her coach and said, this is not going to be good. She escaped before it got bad, and now she has to go and visit her family. She says you can't even take your phone out in the middle of the street or you will be attacked because it's such a hot commodity. You cannot do that kind of stuff. So that's one perspective, the idea that it has happened to other countries. Other countries have said, no, it's not going to happen here, and now look what's happening in the United States. We have the exact same thing. So it's very spooky. We also have somebody who's a Democrat who said, I escaped from Cuba. I came to the United States, became a Democrat, thinking I was advocating for the working class. And then I turned around and saw my party embracing the squad, embracing socialism that I escaped from. So that's a powerful story. We have so many great things. We have somebody who escaped Cuba by windsurfing across the ocean, 90 miles. It took him 10 hours. And when he finally got to the United States, after applying and doing the legal process, he's a legal person in the United States now. He had his first cheeseburger, and he couldn't finish it because you want to know what? Beef is illegal in Cuba. You can't even have that. He ate potatoes for like a year, and his mom burned furniture to boil those potatoes once they ran out of wood.
Well,